I'm back. I know y'all are like, girl, but look, I have just been minding my business, like really enjoying life. And it's no secret that I just was not living for the last few, I don't know, bunches of housewives shows that were coming out. So I was a little bored and I just wanted to mind my business. As you can see, we have a different background, a different setting. I have moved. So, it's just a lot going on. But we're here. I am still in New York. And speaking of New York, we are here to talk about the Real Housewives of New York, season 2, episode 1. So, without further ado, is that how you say it? Obviously, we know popular opinion is to hate on the new thing of New York. I've already said when I did last season, the first season for the reboot, I didn't watch the old New York, so I have no ties to it. I have no loyalty to it. I really don't care. Did watch the last season because Ebony was on there, and I just wanted to see what she was giving. So it was interesting, but I'm just not invested in the old girls. Much love to them, but that being said, I just feel like I feel like the hate on the reboot is very forced. I will say, all in all, before I even talk about it, I definitely, it wasn't the most exciting premiere, I will say, and I'm not saying that to be negative. I'm comparing it to the premiere of Salt Lake City, which was just amazing, and I'm still reeling over it. I obviously did not review it. I'm 2 episodes behind, but I'm going to be reviewing Salt Lake City as well because it's going well. And yeah, the premiere was really fun, but compared to that, New York wasn't like super, super, super like thrilling, but I was really excited to see the ladies back. We started the episode and we are in Bryn's new apartment. Obviously, this, resonates with me because again, I moved. She talks about how moving in New York is hell, which it is literal hell. I moved from Chicago to New York, and that move was easier than moving from Brooklyn to New York to Brooklyn to New York. I literally moved within like 13 minutes of my old apartment, and it was one of the worst things I've ever done. I do really like her apartment though. I don't recall seeing, how she was living last year, but this apartment I think is really, really cute. And obviously everything in New York is just small, small, small. No matter how much money you make, there's going to be a cramped space. So it's just something comforting about that. I like the coziness of it. You want some type of a space, but it's still going to be crunched in. So I just kind of like watching it. It's like a if you know, you know thing. Like if you don't live in New York, you won't really get it. But that's something that I like watching since I do live in New York. That's like the scenery of it is it's just fun to watch. Speaking of that, we move on to Jessel and like watching her take the MTA, I think it was just really fun. It was really funny. The girls, again, from what I think is, I won't even call this one forced hate. I just think that I guess Jessel is not palatable to some of the girls. So some of the girls were saying they didn't buy that Jessel has never been on the MTA. I mean, there are a lot of types of people in the world, so I guess I wouldn't put it past the general person to maybe lie about that or put it on front about that. Do I think that applies to Jessel? No. That being said, I love me some Jessel. If you guys were here last season, you know that that is the team that I run to. That is the flag that I'm waving. So I thought that that was fun to watch, and I really did genuinely miss watching her and Pivot. I do follow her on Instagram. I may have unfollowed her, not off of no beef type of stuff, but it's just like, again, I've been minding my business, and I follow her obviously when we were introduced to her last season. I really liked her. And when the show was off, it may have gotten to a point where I was just like, okay, girl, whatever. So, maybe I'll refollow, but I did really miss watching Jessel. I love me some Jessel. I'm interested. Obviously, it's the first episode, so we're going to start setting up, storylines and seeing what happened. Did my camera just shift? Whatever. We're gonna start setting up storylines and seeing what's happened, and they're talking about their marriage and how Papa doesn't really buy her a lot of gifts, and then there's talks about the fact that they have embryos left. They're storing the embryos in California, so that's very expensive, I can imagine. And Papa mentioned last season that he didn't really want more kids, so they briefly talk about that. I wonder if either the marriage thing or the kids thing is going to become a big thing this season. I don't know. From the way that the premiere went, I don't know that I feel like Jessel is a big focus point this season. Will we know that from the first episode? Not 1,000%, but I feel like she was a big focal point last season. I don't know if it's going to be giving that this season, especially if we're talking about the same thing, that being her marriage and her kids. So I don't know. I low key missed ERIN. Like, and I didn't peep that until I saw ERIN. I will say that I was very back and forth with ERIN last season. I think that ERIN is authentic at best, I guess is the way that I will put it, and that's what I like about her. I think that she can definitely be annoying, and I think that she's definitely emotionally driven, which can make her annoying. But I kind of like the authenticity of it, and we're watching reality TV, so you kind of want that. And so, yeah, I kind of missed me a little bit of Erin, and I'm interested to see what she gives. I think that she may tone down a bit on the emotion side of things, and we'll get to know her personality a little bit more this season, maybe. We see her linking up with Uba. I'm praying to God that we get more of Uba this season. I still don't really know where I stand on Uba, and then it's also interesting to see the contrast of Uba and Chanel Ayan from Dubai. For anybody that did not know, they are cousins. So, and that doesn't mean that they have to be similar or whatever. It doesn't mean that there has to be a comparison at all. But it's just fresh in my mind because Dubai just went off, and Chanel Ayan obviously took a flip and a dive for me. Not really team Chanel Ayan anymore, but it's interesting to see the contrast in their personalities, but also like hearing their voices. And it's just not it's not just about like an accent. It's just like hearing their voices and the way that they talk and the way they express themselves without looking at the screen. You would almost think you're listening to the same person, so that's fun. But I'm interested to see more of Uba's personality this season and see what she's gonna give. They're linking up with Rebecca Minkoff, who I think is coming in as a friend of Erin, which I think is interesting. I think it'd be fun to see some friends of Erin because she has a particular spot in the group, right? Like I said, she can be a little bit of annoying. So sometimes I feel like they kind of push her to the side. So it'd be interesting to see somebody that she's a little bit closer to. I don't remember how they explained it. She knew Rebecca, and I don't really know how close they actually are. Maybe Rebecca just came in and needed somebody to come with. But that being said, we didn't learn much about Rebecca in this scene, and I don't know if we will. But nice to meet you, babe. She does know SAI, who we still haven't seen, but we'll get to that. Uba's talking a little bit. I'm kind of over, I won't say over, but I get it, is where I'm at. Like, we talked about Uba having this new man at the finale last season. We talked about Uba having this new man at the reunion. Now we're at the season premiere of season 2, and we're talking about Uba having this new man, and she's head over heels. I get it. You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of one note for me. But she does discuss maybe having a child, so that can be an interesting thing to follow. I will say, though, I do want to learn more about Uba, but if it's going to take the route of Uba's dating life, I think I would prefer something else. But I guess we'll see. Oh, and then they talk a little bit, and Erin just kind of highlights that she hasn't seen Brynn, and there's like a thing, and she kind of hints a little bit to what the issue is, but we haven't gotten into it yet, but we'll get there. We then fast forward and we see Jenna, and she's shopping with Jessel and Brynn. Interesting dynamic. I like to talk about which girls are filming with which girls just to see. I am interested to see where Jenna's going to fall this season. She's a little bit of a floater within the group, and I don't really know who her homegirl is in the group or who it's going to end up being. It seems like she kind of just like jumps around, definitely runs her mouth. But yeah, we'll see. But this is fun. They're furniture shopping because of Brynn's new apartment, and they kind of get into the conversation of the things. This whole issue by way of Brynn, of course, and basically, Erin did this podcast with Jeff Lewis. If you don't know who Jeff Lewis is, I can't really explain to you his background. I just know who he is because I see him on TV a lot. And he does Watch What Happens Live a lot, and it's very messy at the end of the day, but very, very entertaining. So you can imagine that he's going to say something interesting. But even in this clip, it wasn't really that bad. So they're having a conversation about Brynn, and there's a question posed by whom I don't remember, but there's a question posed about Brynn to the effect of where does she get her money? A hot topic that we had last season. And then there's a second question posed of like, well, do you think she gets it from somebody? Do you think she's getting some financial support? Erin outright says, I don't think so. And then the question is posed to Jeff, who I believe says, well, I don't know. Right? And Brynn kind of took that and she construed it to be like, well, they're implying that I have sex with men for money, or like I'm a sugar mama, or whatever, or sugar baby, excuse me, or whatever the hell. I can understand that being a sensitive topic because, again, like I said, it was a hot topic last season, but nobody said that in this clip. So it's interesting that she feels that way. So then we jump to this story of Brynn telling Jenna that Erin, allegedly telling Brynn telling Jenna that Erin allegedly called Jenna broke. And we get to this story of, Erin and Jenna went to lunch in the Hamptons, which is always fun. Like they had a lot of like pictures of the ladies hanging out outside of the show, which I thought was cool. Because it showed a true dynamic. So, they went to lunch in the Hamptons, and I guess Jenna has this vintage car and it broke down. And I guess they were coming back to the city. And the Hamptons is about a 3 hour drive, at least from Brooklyn. I know they don't live in Brooklyn, but when I've gone to the Hamptons, it's about 3 hours from Brooklyn. So it's quite a distance in driving, especially with traffic. And so, whatever. Erin got her an Uber, and I guess Jenna did not have pay her back. And Erin later describes it as, the Uber was about $250, and I can only imagine. So, going up the street in New York in an Uber is about $50. So I can only imagine. So to that end, I can definitely see the conversation. First of all, it's messy to have that conversation with anybody to begin with. But if I had paid for somebody an Uber, they didn't pay me back, I can see myself disclosing that to somebody. And then I can also see in that conversation maybe like joking and being like, oh, she's broke, da da da, or maybe not saying anything to that effect at all. But at the end of the day, Brynn interpreted that to mean, or she recalls Erin saying that Jenna was having money problems. So she relayed that message to Jenna. And then something they talked about a lot, I guess Jenna had a girls' night, which I think is also fun, them hanging out. But it's so pushed on us that I'm wondering, and the girls weren't really getting along. And it was so heavily recorded on phones. So I'm wondering if this was like the show is about to start type of thing, or is this was them genuinely hanging out. Maybe it was both. I don't know, but that's just a question I have. But anywho, I guess when they were at Jenna's house, Jenna, kept Erin to the end and she addressed her about it and Erin denied it. So now that's going to be an issue for this season. We'll circle back around to that. We move forward. We come back from commercial break. I clocked the time. You guys know I like to do that if you've been here before. It's about 29 minutes into the episode, roughly. And we're finally seeing SAI. And SAI has braids, which I think are cute. But I think it's interesting that we went 30 minutes without seeing SAI. And to me, that is a message. Everything about SAI this episode, to me, was a message that, or a response to a message from the audience that we weren't really feeling SAI and her nasty attitude last season. But I can tell that she's trying to work on it, so I'm going to give her some grace. And SAI's meeting with Jessel, to me, it's just not, I won't say it's inauthentic, but it feels like something I could have like pinpointed on my bingo card. Like, okay, sure, whatever. Like, she's gonna try to make up to Jeff. So what I did like was that she did the confessional, and she's like, I saw myself on TV. She throws a little joke on there. She's like, I looked really cute, which she did. But she does say, she's learning. She kind of tiptoed around it a bit. It was giving me a little bit of the Donald Trump not answering the question. But she was saying, for the most part, that she didn't really like how she presented herself last season, and she was apologetic to Jessel, and they worked on relationship, and now they're cool. How cool? Who knows? But they're meeting up. Somebody had tweeted though, like, "Girl, it's because we made you," and I do believe that the audience had a huge effect on that. But anywho, I will also say I don't. This is a weird contrast here. I don't love Sai's confessional with the bow. It just like the look is cute, but the bow to me is just kind of like childish. It screams like if Sai went into Brynn's closet, right? Or to Brynn's hairstylist and got this childish bow and this childish look. Whereas when she has the head wrap and the like gold form thing, she looks stunning. Like it was more, very much so more Sai. I love Sai's look. I love her first scene that she's got the braids and the Timbs. Like I love the way that Sai dresses. Don't love her attitude. Love the way she dresses. Not in that confessional look though. So we also get to talk a little bit to Sai, and Sai also says that she has not talked to Brynn. I kind of forgot about the finale because it was just not really good, and the reunion, which was just not really good. But, they had a falling out because, Sai let it slip that Uba was dating somebody who she won't stop talking about now. So I really don't know why it's an issue. It's definitely a moot issue now. But she spilled the beans on camera. And, Brynn is the one that repeated it. So they had this big, or repeated it. I don't remember how it happened, but it was all stupid. And that's why they're beefing. So, she reminds us, because nobody remembered, because nobody cared. She reminds us that she apologized to Brynn for the way that she reacted with that at the reunion. And Brynn just wasn't really feeling it. So they haven't talked. They're not cool. And then she also highlights the fact that there's some weird stuff with Jenna because Jenna approached her at the same party at Jenna's house and was like, "Why do you hate me?" Because she heard, that SAI was saying that she hated her, I guess. And SAI was like, "I don't say I hate people. I would say that I can't stand her," which is interesting because we find out at the end of the episode that that's exactly what she said. So this was sparking me as a moment where like SAI's acting like she doesn't know what Jenna's problem is, but she said verbatim what she said about Jenna. So I'm like, okay. We move on to Jenna. I love that we're starting the scene in her closet because I just love looking at her closet. I think it's also interesting that she's saying it's the first time she's met her girlfriend's mom. They're hanging out, they're doing the thing. To me, it kind of felt like more of the same though because they did show a flashback of her doing this very same thing last season. So I'm like, give us something different. But fine, fun, whatever. Somebody pointed out on Twitter that it's interesting we're going to see her girlfriend's mom, but most likely not her girlfriend. So I would have to agree with that as well. But I don't know that I care. Like I'm just not somebody that really. It wasn't specific to Uba. I just don't really care about the dating storylines. I just don't. Raquel shows up. I feel like I've been seeing a ton of Raquel preseason, like a lot of not necessarily hype, but she's been around, and people obviously know her. Her personality seems really cool. Her partner is cute. Their dynamic seems cool. I don't feel like we did learn a lot about her. Like she does art and she does art for television, so I think that that's cool for some shows that we definitely know. So that's dope. I'm interested to see, if maybe Jenna will be her bestie, right? Because I'm like, where does Jenna land in this group? Who's her friend? And she did say on Watch What Happens Live, that what brought her back to the show was the fact that Raquel joined, and the fact that the other lady joined, Rebecca Minkoff, and they're closer to her age, and the fact that she has another lesbian on the show with Raquel. So I'm interested to see if that's kind of where she lands in the group, if those ladies stick around. I do think it's fun to know that, they have similar stories. Raquel and Jenna, is her name Raquel? Raquel and Jenna, I apologize if I'm wrong. They both were married to men and they both got divorced around the same time, and that's when they met each other and they bonded. So I think that that's fun and it's interesting. We move on to Erin and Abe, who I think just have zero compatibility, and it just seems like they probably met very young and just really like started this relationship and they're kind of growing apart. That's just kind of what I get. And they're having this conversation. I will say first, we obviously learned that Erin's mom has breast cancer, which is extremely sad. And so we hear about that, but then we also kind of talk about them moving. But then I'm also kind of paying attention to her kids because I'm like, I feel like I didn't see this much of them, but now we're all at one table, so I'm getting to watch and see this family dynamic. And then I'm kind of confused at the same time about the move. Like, what caused y'all to move? Because now I feel like everybody is moving. Like, what is happening? So I'm like, why did y'all move? Of course, she explained why they moved, but it just felt so rushed to me. And it's also a temporary move, so I was confused. And then to add fuel to the fire, he makes a joke about mushrooms, and she gets extremely upset. And it gets weird. Their dynamic is weird, and he highlights, that that's not the issue. There are deeper issues, and she says she doesn't want to talk about it. So obviously, I won't say obviously, but I assumed infidelity. So that's just kind of where I landed, and I would like to see where it is. I just don't. I hate to say it out loud, but I don't see this relationship lasting. I don't really understand it, but they know more than I do. I'm not in a relationship. This is only my second season getting to know them, but these are my feels. No shade to Raquel, but the scene with her girlfriend really gave me nothing. I learned nothing, but cool dynamic. We get this final scene. It's a cast scene, which we like. It just wasn't exciting though. What I really love about premieres is that you do get these full cast scenes, or you should, and they're typically explosive and really exciting. Shout out to Salt Lake City. This one was meh, and I think it was highlighted. Obviously when Jessel came in, she was like, "This is so civilized. Everybody's sitting down." I think that set the tone for everything. Jenna's in a dress, which I think is interesting. I like that she's committed to. It seems like, at least by her being more open and at least wearing a dress this season, she's more open to growth and change, and she's in a relationship. So I'm excited to see how much more Jenna opens up. Love, 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 love the coat that Sai had on. Like, literally want to go get me one. No, I can't afford it, but I would love a coat like that. Beautiful. And then Bryn, and I didn't like Bryn's look at all, but Bryn and I didn't like Jessel's hair either. I'm tired of her doing the bump it thing, and I'm getting distracted. But they go to the bar and we learn that, did you see when they were walking to the bar, that guy with the coat on, he's kind of leaning into the camera like, that's so me. We learned that Erin had texted Jessel the night before saying so disappointed, no context at all. And obviously they assumed that it has something to do with the furniture, but the furniture store scene when it was, Jenna and Bryn and Jessel. But I'm like, what does it have to do with Jessel? Because I just didn't clock Jessel saying anything wrong. I didn't clock anybody saying anything wrong as it related to Erin, but I guess we'll talk about it. We move back to the table though, and you can tell that the conversations weren't really going. Like they were having, it felt very much so like, yes, I'm at a bar and everybody's having separate conversations, which is fine, but the scene wasn't going anywhere. So Sai kind of very randomly jumps in there and she's like, so Jenna, like we had the thing at your house. Who told you that I hated you? And Jenna, seeming very uncomfortable with having that conflict, just kind of passes it off, kind of smiles it off, and she's like, well, this one. And she nods over at Bryn. And it's like, of course. So I'm expecting in Housewives Land how things typically go that Sai would address Bryn then and there, but that did not happen. So I'm like, missed opportunity, but okay. And the conversation gets a little confusing from there, but we do get to a point where Erin, or maybe I got bored and I stopped listening, or maybe a little D, all of the above. But Erin looks at her and she says, well, we do have a text message. I'm not clear on whether it was a group or whether it was just Erin and her texting. I don't know. But I guess Sai said, I can't stand her, which she said earlier in the episode. And she's like, well, you did say that you couldn't stand her. And Sai's like, okay. And she goes back to the conversation with Jenna. And she, she's like, I did say I couldn't stand you. I really didn't like you last season. I didn't feel like you were being yourself. This puts me back to my space that I was in with Sai last season, though, because while that's understandable, I don't feel like Jenna had that much interaction with Sai for Sai to even jump and have that opinion. I could see if Jenna were hanging out with Sai a lot one on one, or even just like having a lot of direct conversation in the group, and Jenna was giving this impression to Sai directly, and as a result, Sai was like, I don't think she's being authentic, but that's not what we saw on TV. I didn't really see Jenna and Sai interact much at all, so it felt like Sai was just running off of a adverse opinion about Jenna just for the sake of doing it. And it makes me feel like maybe there's some jealousy there because Jenna just has a very big name. She came into the show having a big name even before the show started. And it just feels like it might be some of that. Like there's just no context there, honestly, of it for me. But I'm not going to beat a dead horse because she is apologizing for it, same as she was doing for Jessel. And I do think that it is authentic. I think that she's being honest about it. But again, I do think it's motivated by the audience. I did think it was interesting because Sai is more so leaning on the like, well, why would Bryn tell her that thing? But Jenna's very clear that a lot of people told her that Sai was talking poorly about her. I would honestly like to know more about that. So again, I would like to say missed opportunity. I do also want to note on my Jessel, like, train, she was having an espresso martini with tequila, and that is one of my staples. Like, I couldn't love her more. Talking about drinks, that drink in particular, and it came between Erin and Jessel, and Erin's like, well, if you be nicer to me, I'll let you try my drink, or something stupid like that, something childish and passive aggressively. Erin's back, everyone. Jessel's like, what are you talking about, girl? And so she brings up the whole conversation at the furniture store, and she's like, well, Jenna told me that you kind of doubled down. You said that I did say that Jenna had money problems, and I'm like, where did they get that from? And they are kind of playing the clip over and over, but I'm still not deducing that she said that. So maybe she did have some type of involvement, and there was a scene where she was just like, I don't remember, and I'm just blaming it on mom brain, like whatever. I do think it's something that just doesn't matter, especially because in that scene, Jessel was saying, maybe she was joking. That's what I was taking from it. Not even to be biased. Like, if she said it and she was wrong, she can be wrong. But I heard her say maybe she was joking. I really didn't hear her trying to, like, throw Erin under the bus. I don't know the issue. The issue to me here was, again, like, Jenna running her mouth. And a lot of what we heard in this episode was like, well, Jenna called me and said this, and Jenna did this, but Jenna doesn't, like, pop off in person in public. You know what I'm saying? She doesn't say anything. And that gets to be a little bit annoying, especially when you're on reality TV. Like, voice your opinion on the TV, not on the telephone, babe. But, while they're having this conversation, Erin kind of seems to be backing up off of, Jessel a little bit. They had called Jenna over there. Jenna's still not really saying much. She is kind of doubling down on the fact that she feels like Jessel was being messy as well. But I just don't know why Jessel was in it more than Brynn. But Brynn does walk over conveniently, and Erin goes, ugh. And so I'm like, okay, part of an opportunity. And Bryn's like, excuse me. And then, but Erin's back. Erin starts to exit, and I'm like, oh, now we've missed the opportunity again. Three strikes are out. Like, she's leaving, and she's like, I have integrity, and you don't, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, but I do like how, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but Sai was kind of sitting on the side of Brynn, and she then kind of switches her position. For what reason, I don't know, but I believe it was to be able to have a conversation with her or to confront her. So she positions herself kind of across from Brynn, and Brynn is then talking about the Jeff Lewis thing to Erin while Erin's trying to storm off. And she's like, well, you said that I, have sex for money, blah, blah, blah. And Sai's like, she never said that. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you're lying. And I appreciate her for clocking Brynn on lying about that because that's not what was said. And then, Bryn tries to deflect because the Jeff Lewis thing was already a deflection. So it's a deflection on top of a deflection. And she's like, girl, like, cause Sai's like, you're making things up. You're being weird. Like, you're making drama, which she is. And she's like, you also made drama at Jenna's house and made the whole girls' night weird. So, Bryn deflects and she's like, it's only weird because you called Pobbit Dory. And I was like, girl, like obviously her and Jessel didn't like each other last season, so who cares? Like I do wonder what was the proximity of that insult to like Sai acting like she's so cool with Jessel. I do want another timeline there. Do I think we're gonna get into it? No. It is still very stupid and it is part of a deflection, but it's just like, girl. But all in all, Sai, from what they characterized, started yelling and Bryn got upset and she cried and she left her own party before Uba showed up and Uba was looking pretty gorgeous. So I do like that Sai is taking her accountability and she's like, I didn't have to react that way. I didn't have to yell. When you yell, you don't really accomplish anything. I would have to agree. But in this context, I don't think that that's what happened. And I also just feel like it was another missed opportunity. Like, hold her accountable. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that it was yelling. I think that Bryn uses fragility and just kind of like like she is causing a lot of issues over nothing. And that's what leads me to say, like, the premiere was good, but it was more of the same. I mean, it's the same. And they even made the comparison, which I think they did a disservice to themselves because they made the comparison to the cheese thing last premiere that started because of Bryn, right? And this miscommunication in Game of Telephone. We don't want to watch another season of the same thing, especially with the same players. If it's going to be the same theme and the same like story, you can't have the same exact players. You can't have the same exact antagonists. You know what I'm saying? So that's why, I mean, it was good and I liked it and it has the makings of something good. But right now, it kind of feels like more of the same. And hopefully, they get over this pretty quickly, kind of like they did the cheese thing, and we can move on and see what happens, especially as it relates to dynamics in the group. And even still, like while they're doing this, they left the new girls over at another table. Like, get the new girls in the field. We needed them because y'all are a good group, but like what y'all have going on dynamics wise is a little stale. So let's get the new girls in the group and let's see what can happen. So I'm giving them a chance. I enjoyed it. I like the ladies. Like I said, I miss the ladies. I don't hate the fact that they have rebranded. I don't think it's a flop. I'm not gonna force that like the general public, but I do think that they I need some seasoning. Like I need something more. So we'll see. And sorry for the wait, but I'm back and we're gonna see how this season goes. And I will see y'all in the next one.